different country, and the things that even though I can't always understand all of your words, I can hear from the translation of my friend Pancho, and reading the words on your slides, and seeing your eyes, and the eyes of the people in your pictures, I know that you guys are a force to be reckoned with in the world. And I want to congratulate you for your leadership, and just tell you that the other thing that we used to do is we used to say the little companies had to come learn from the big companies. But I also want to tell you now that most of the big companies I work with need to come learn from the little companies. You guys are setting the pace and are as good as any that I've seen. So I want to congratulate you, and I think we need to give each other a round of applause. It's quite remarkable to hear you talking the way you're talking, with the depth of understanding that you have, and your recognition of what it really takes to create excellence in your organizations. It reminds me that we don't have to learn by failure. We don't have to go over and experience the same things over and over again. We can learn from the past, and we can accelerate the rate of improvement that we get. So I want to thank you for teaching me that, and showing the rest of us how to do it well. What I'd like to do today in the remaining time, and I realize that you've been here a long time today and you've been taught very well by some great leaders, I'd like to share with you just a few things that we're continuing to learn as we study the Shingle model and try and understand how we can use the model most effectively to help organizations of all different kinds. In our last conference in Utah last year, more than half of our participants came from industries outside of manufacturing. This was a big shift for us because historically, lean has had its home in manufacturing. But the more we've come to understand that the keys to success in manufacturing are not necessarily the tools of lean, but the principles of lean, we've come to understand that the principles are universal. The principles have application to any people, any industry, any time, any geography. Principles are universal and they're timeless. And what I want to share with you today is, and I have to tell you, in the last 18 months, I personally have had a significant increase in my understanding of what a principle is and the power of a principle. So you all are the leaders in your organizations. Leaders' first and primary responsibility is to understand and drive the principles into your culture. What I want to discuss with you for a few minutes today is why that's true and what that really means in terms of your role and what you need to do to accomplish that. So I have a few slides that I'd like to go through, but I will tell you that my message has changed as I've been here with you today. So I'll use the slides that I have, but I may talk about some things that are a little bit different than what are on the slides. So this is an image that we've used. We've had different versions of this image now for about 8 years. The idea of the image is simply to illustrate that in almost every organization, in spite of our very best efforts to create improvement programs, initiatives, focused tools, developing systems, programs, events, in spite of all of our very best efforts at doing that, and our best efforts to build a culture, in most organizations there remains a gap. And the success, your long-term success, depends on you, your ability as a leader in your organization to always know what that gap looks like for you. Where are you relative to combining all of the, you might even say, the technical strategies of the business with the people strategies of the business? How do you bring those things together in such a way that we close that gap and we create what we would call enterprise excellence. When we close that gap between our technical strategies and our people strategies, and put them together. So, you've seen many different versions of this model over the years, as Pancho has shared with you and some of his associates at Lenses. What we've come to understand, I'm going to share three specific insights. I've heard you talk about them today, so I know that you understand them. I'll try and condense them into three specific statements. They really come from our recognition that every organization has to deliver results. Your ultimate accountability is to deliver results for shareholders, for other stakeholders. Sometimes, most often in this group, your results are measured in terms of financial contributions, but not in every organization. Some organizations' results that they're accountable for are a lot more philosophical than that. They may be environmental impacts, or they may be a service that's provided, or an education that's given. But no matter what the result, how you measure the result, everybody has to deliver results. Everybody, in order to deliver results, invests in some kind of tooling. You have to have a tool. You have to have a means to accomplish that. They could be factories, they could be machines, they could be ideas, they could be computers, they could be software, but everybody has to have tools. And everybody has to have some kind of an organized way of accomplishing things. So there's no breakthrough in the idea of results and tools and systems. And in fact, everybody has to have people. I don't know of any organizations that can accomplish results without people. So, in the middle of all of this, we have a culture. Most often the culture sits in the background. It's not the predominant thing that we focus on. So the goal is to pull the culture from the background and put it in the foreground, in the front, so that it sits on top of these things. Culture is the thing that influences all of that. So, everybody has all of these things. You guys have always had them. You've always had the accountability for results. You've always invested in tools. You've always been building and managing systems to get results. And you've always had some kind of a culture in your organization. The question is, with all of that, we know that for most organizations, the gap still remains between our efforts to create results and the culture. Here's what we've learned. First of all, ideal results require ideal behavior. There is a direct cause and effect relationship. If you want to get great results, you can't focus on the results. I was looking at Francisco's book. The section, we have this experience often when we're doing an organizational assessment for a shingle price. We spend almost all of our time on these things here, plus one other one here. And we're always scrambling at the end to evaluate results. And I was noticing in Francisco's book, this is the chapter on results. It's 2 pages long. This is the effect. This is the cause. So, but almost every organization that we work with, when we say, where does your management tend to focus their time and energy? Where does your top management focus? Guess where they focus? On the 2 pages at the end. Not the 186 pages before it, the cause. So, if we want to improve our results, we have to focus on the cause. And the cause of results is great behavior. So, given we all have this, we have to do something different. Here's the second insight. Our beliefs and systems are what drive our behavior. What we believe, I heard some of you call it values today. What I value, what I believe, has a great influence on how I behave. And the systems that we've built in the organization, either intentionally or unintentionally, those systems are what also drive our behavior. Now remember, our goal is to create great results, and we do that by creating great behavior. So you have to do two things as leaders. You have to help people, you have to influence what people believe about how they should behave, and you have to create the systems in which they work to influence, also to guide and shape and help them experience the things that you want them to believe, so that they will come to believe them by doing them. So, what makes the difference then between any organization in the world that has all of that and the very best ones? And the answer to that is really principles. So what I want to do is just take a few minutes to discuss with you, what is it about a principle that makes it so powerful? And how does a principle change the way we think about our behaviors? And what do you need to know about principles as a leader? I appreciate very, very much that most of your models, as I saw all the different variations of them, most of your models just has a place in there for the principles, and many of you have them right at the foundation, which is wonderful. What I'd like to challenge you to do as we leave here today is to spend more time thinking about and understanding the deeper meaning of what those principles really are. Because we know that we can't keep doing the same things that we've been doing. Previous generations have already proven that to us. We have to change the things that we talk about and the things that we do. It can't be just this. So we have to focus on principles. So a principle, in its basic term, is a foundational rule. It's a fundamental rule that governs a consequence, or has an inevitable consequence. So, if I do this, I will get this. A principle is at the root, at that foundation. So, the reason that principles help, the reason they make a difference is because when we understand the rule, they help us to see both the positive and the negative consequences of our behavior. If I understand the principle, I can see. Because it's always true, and I can depend on it to always be true, no matter whether I'm in Germany or whether I'm in Dearborn or whether I'm in Querétaro or San Luis Potosí. When I follow the principle, or when I pay attention to the principle, these things happen. So if I do this, this will happen. If I do this, this will happen. We call that being informed. Principles inform our behavior. They inform our choices about how we behave when we understand the principle. And that's different than a tool. A tool is for solving a problem or solving a particular accomplishing a particular task. Or a system is a way in which we do something, but a principle is a fundamental rule that governs a consequence, that when we understand it, it helps us to know how to choose our behavior, our actions. Now that's a pretty powerful thing. If all 300 or 100 or